Hello guys, how is it going? Nice to be back on another Insta Live. That was Munbeva with Indo Soul. It's been a long time since we played concerts on stage, but still good to get back and play the songs. So today's live is about discussing Gamakas and how to play film songs as far as our violin technique goes. I'm happy to answer all your questions. Whatever questions you have, I'm promoting my next crash course that's starting on the 10th of August. I've done 2 so far. I started the first one in April. I had about 20 participants. We had a great time. And the next one, the second one, had about 40 people. And I'm just about finishing last weekend, so I have a few more electives left. I'm going to talk a little bit about the course, but mainly this session is to answer all your questions, whatever you have on violin technique. I see a lot of requests. I will be playing a few songs here and there, but I'll keep one separate live just for requests, just for playing songs. I just want to dedicate this live just for violin enthusiasts, violin students, to answer all your questions. Okay, let's begin. Okay guys, if you have any questions, you already asked something, you could repeat it now. Shobana Iyer, yes, I was playing without a processor, but I have a basic reverb and a delay on. I usually play only like that. I don't process my violin too much. I do use a processor for live gigs. I use it very, very rarely. In terms of the effects, I use it very rarely. I go mainly for a clean tone with reverb and delay. Alright, Shobana Iyer again asks position of little violin, wrist for playing gamakas with less effort. The position remains same as always for your left hand. Whatever you use for the plain fingers or your gamakas is going to be the same. Just keep your wrists like this. The most important thing to take care of is that there needs to be a gap. You see a gap here underneath the fingerboard. That's very, very important. So make sure this gap is there. Apart from that, there are 2 things to take care of. One is there is a balance all the time between how much the thumb peeks out and how much the finger peeks out. So you see this sort of a balance exists. So less of the thumb means your fingers have more of space, which makes it easier to reach with the little finger. And more of your thumb means these fingers are a bit below. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. In general, I would say keep your thumb loose, stationary. All your fingers can be loose and stationary as possible. Don't move your thumb in your first position, and your general posture for gamakas is sorted. Okay, so the filter copy asks best violin to buy for beginners. I got into a call with Musicals from Chennai. Mr. Kishore Das is very well known, very nice gentleman. So he put me through to a sales executive. What I was told is, for beginners, for around 6,000 rupees, the Chinese and the Korean makes are very good. You will find some Indian violins at the same rate as well, but they told me that the Chinese and the Korean are a bit better in their setup. So go for the Indian violins, and then after that, between 10-20k you might find, 10 to 30k you might find your Cine, Hofner kind of violins. Those you can go maybe when you're in the Varnam level or a little after that, but go for the Indian violin or the Chinese and the Korean, in fact. Make sure the setup is okay. Make sure the tuning pegs, the string adjusters, the bridge height, all that, the nut. So 4 things. 2 tuning, the tuning peg, the string adjuster, both on the tuning, the bridge height, and the nut. So just make sure you check with the shopkeeper that all this is sorted, and just play the violin. All the violins are custom made, so depends on what works for you. You might like one violin more than the other, so pick the violin that you like. Okay, let's go on. How to play film songs without over Carnatic Touch? It's a very, very good question. It's something that I deal with in my elective as part of the course. Let's take the song Maruarte. you have the first line, right? There are two things that are very important when it comes to film song playing. It's the fact that we know the lyrics by heart. We know Maruvartai pesade. So you have mama pa 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 pa. So you have the pa that is sort of playing only two notes, but you have a whole line. So you need to sort of have your bow that speaks the lyrics. So you need to have. So the bowing has to be lyrical. That's the first and foremost, because anyone you play a film song to already knows the lyrics. So they are sort of running the lyrics through in the mind. So have your long and short notes together as well. Maruvar tai pesa. So when you have this line, Maruvar tai is small, pe sa de is long. So you have your bowing accordingly. So that's first. Bowing it lyrically is very important. And we need to play our gamakas lightly in general for any film song, unless it's a very Carnatic oriented song that demands Carnatic Sangati. You have this sort of a folksy kind of gamakas. So that was a bit heavy, right? Is light. Is heavy. You understand what I mean? The slides and all that can be more light classical, can be a little lighter. Can become. So you see, not just the volume, but it's also the strength of the gamaka. While in Carnatic music we say the gamakas has to be strong. For film songs, it's a bit different. It sort of goes in the opposite way, where you want it to be lighter. The touch has to be there, but you don't want to make it overly Carnatic. So you have. So pasasari ni da pa. So you have notes where there are only plain notes. So you have a light gamaka, but apart from that, it's plain notes. So you don't want to play. You don't want to play like pasasari ni. You could probably get away with that even for Maruvarte because it's a Carnatic oriented song, but some other song you don't want to have any Carnatic touch unless the song demands it. So get used to be playing plain notes. A lot of plain notes are very, very important. You have to be comfortable with playing plain notes. So you need to know when to play the plain notes, when to play a gamaka if needed at all, and how to play it lightly. Okay, that was an answer to Mr. Basmasuran. How do you make the left hand fingers more flexible, especially the little finger? So little finger, I talk about it a lot in my in the course. So basically I split my course into two. One is the core technique, and one is a bunch of electives. I have a bunch of 7 electives for this course. In core technique, I look a lot at the bowing, how to hold the bow, and how to make it flexible, how to have the fingers act like shock absorbers in a sense so that they can make the bowing smooth. I also talk about wrist movement, how to get the wrist to move, all that. And when it comes to left hand, I discuss about a lot of exercises that you can do to make your left hand fingers more flexible, more confident, and more accurate in pitch. Okay, when it comes to the little finger, we deal with that separately. The important thing, one thing that I already discussed was this. So when you have this balance going on like this, I like to keep my thumb a little lower, as low as possible. My thumb is sort of peeking out in the middle, okay? So between the nail and the joint, sorry, the crease, you have it in the middle is where my thumb is peeking out, so that my fingers have more of length. So what you guys have to realize is these fingers here act like typewriters, okay? You need to sort of have it being able to type the notes in a sense as fast as possible and as swiftly as possible. So you need to have the fingers curved, all the fingers need to be curved, and the more length gives an opportunity for the little finger to reach the pa or the re. Okay. One more thing to keep in mind is when you're holding the violin, say you're holding it in your Indian posture. I'm just going to show it you in the Western one just so that you can see me on camera better. So when you have it like this, there is always where the palm is facing, it could face towards my left, right, towards the corner of the room, or it could face towards my face. Okay, so we want to have the wrist sort of turning a little bit towards your left, sort of like 45 degrees, so that once it does this, your little finger automatically gets closer to the fingerboard. You see what I mean? If it was here and I needed to play a pa with my little finger, I needed to really reach out. So I like to have it a little bit like this, in my Indian style, in the Indian hold, like this, so that the fingers are already curved and ready to strike at the fingerboard. So these two are important to start with for the little finger. And after that, you also have exercises of how you can reach the little finger. Okay, that doesn't sound so good, but what we are trying to do is we are trying to stretch the little finger, which usually has to play Re1 or Re2. We're making it play Ga1, we're making it play Ga2. So we're sort of stretching it to the max so that our Re sounds feels much easier. And one more thing is, when you're stretching the little finger, it needs to stretch from the base joint, okay, so that it always does remain curved. Like when I'm replaying the Re, my little finger is still curved. You see that? The curve needs to be retained all the time. So that's a few tips about the little finger. Let me play a song and get to the next question. This is for Anu. Alright. That was for Anu Vijay. Karthik Shankar asks about easy staccato bowing. Staccato is straight off. I'll tell you one thing. When it comes to staccato or when it comes to spiccato, what is very important, guys, is your accurate bow hold. All the fingers curved. That's the first starting point for all these kind of bow strokes. When it comes to staccato, it's basically a punctuated bow stroke. So you have an attack in the starting, pum 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 pum. So that's what staccato is. Spiccato, on the other hand, is when the bow bounces. For staccato, the bow doesn't bounce. This is spiccato. So for staccato, what's important is you are pushing down a little bit. So let's do one thing. Let's start with a long stroke, which is called a martele, where you have. So let's forget about small strokes. Just start with a bite. We call it a bite. So you sort of press down a little bit and immediately release it. Okay, two things to keep in mind is when we are playing our staccato, when we are playing, okay, this is the down bow, this is the up bow, right? So when you're playing the down bow, you want to sort of tilt the bow a little bit towards. A little bit towards this hair, the hair that is on the left side of the hair. On the left side of the hair, you want to tilt it this side so that the wood sort of comes towards you. That's for the down bow. When you go for the up bow, you want to tilt it away so that the wood is away from you. That's a small technique to make staccato easier, but mainly start with the bite and then try and make it lesser and lesser. So you can try this with open strings and then go into some, you could try it on any exercise. You can try it on your Sarli Varsa even. Just playing. So you can try that. First try it on one string preferably. Create your own exercise that's just there on one string. And then try shifting strings. So start with longer strokes, open strings, then go for shorter strokes and start playing some notes and then go for string crossing. That would be the start to staccato bowing. It takes a bit of time, but again, anything with violin takes time, but that's the way it works. Bhargav Shandilya asks, whenever I try to play kritis or alapana and related ragas like Giti Gaule, Kannada and Ananda Bhairavi, I'm never able to bring out their characteristic sounds. How do you do it with gamakas? Okay, that's a very interesting question. There are certain kind of gamakas that add a lot of character. Okay, let me talk about one of the most important gamakas. That's Kampita Gamaka. Kampita Gamaka is when you have a mild oscillation in a note. I like to call it half gamakas when I'm explaining it in the elective, the gamaka elective. So you see this Shankarabharanam, you see this Ga, which is always, the Ma. Sari Gama Gama. So that's the Kampita Gamaka. And you also have with the knee as well. The knee is always sort of going towards Sa, and the Ma is always coming from Ga a little bit. I call it a half Gamaka because it doesn't go all the way till Sa. That's all the way, but I don't go all the way. So what basically I'm doing is I'm just adding like half the pressure to my ring finger so that it sort of goes a little bit towards Sa. Okay, so this is what Kampita Gamaka is. What's very interesting is when you take this, you looked at that as the Ma in Shankarabharanam. Now let's go to Kalyani. So you see the Ga has the Ma one that it touches when it plays as the Ga. So to answer your questions, forget Ananda Bhairavi, Riti Gole, Kannada. I'll play one of those ragas a little bit as well. But just with the basic Kalyani, Shankarabharanam, you have phrases like this that immediately push the raga across. So you see how much of the Kampita is involved. The same Kampita Gamaka that was in as Ma in Shankarabharanam becomes Ga in Kalyani, which is very, very interesting. So each raga has its own peculiarities. It's important to listen to the different elucidations of the raga by senior vocalists or violinists. Listen to their alapana and understand what commonly they are all doing. Like any vocalist, violinist, any musician in Kalyani will play. This will come in one form or the other, and the second you play these 3-4 notes, you know you're in Kalyani. Okay, Riti Gaule. So the feature that sort of marks Riti Gaule is the ga ga ma. So you should remember your Janta Swara. So the Janta Gamaka is very, very important in adding character as well. So you have Kampita, you have Janta, you have a lot of Gamakas like these. So what does the Janta do in Riti Gaule is here. As you guys know, Janta is sort of a flash to the note below. So you see that again, one phrase you have Riti Gaule there. Okay. So Kannada again, Ga is actually Sari pa ga, Sari pa mari mari mari. You don't have the. You have it from Ma to Re. So that's again one more characteristics of Kannada. What I'm planning to do is to do a future course on Carnatic music appreciation. I want to basically get to all the main ragas like Todi, Kalyani, Shankarabharanam, and discuss this in detail. What are the notes? What are the kind of gamakas? What are the important phrases? How do you play them? Because this is very, very important for Carnatic musicians to bring out the soul of the raga. It's very interesting for me to do that because I sort of really worked a lot on that years ago. And I still have it with me, but now I've just moved so much to fusion and stuff like that. It'll be very interesting for me to get to this. I'll do a future course because a lot of my past the participants that had attended the first 2 courses also have asked for that. Anyway, I hope that gives some light on your question. So I'm not able to give you a general answer, Bhargav. All I can say is listen to different kritis, alapanas of a raga and figure out what the gamakas are used. Listen to 4-5 musicians, you will find common characteristics, and that's the best way to go about learning the ragas. How to play higher notes above high sa. Sravs.a asks, I'm guessing you're asking the high sa on the pa string. Okay, so I'm going to answer that. I did a video today. Okay, guys, a lot of things have changed. If you guys are a repeat audience to my Insta Live, I have a new Instagram channel called Violin_technique. Okay, I'm going to just comment here. Go check that out. Please follow that. Okay, there you go. Violin_technique. So follow that. I just put a video today specifically talking about this question of how to play high strings, above the high sa. It's called Positional Theory. So where we would use something called the third position. Okay, when it comes to Western music, you have different positions. Okay, so you have different positions: second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. The positions that are important to us as Carnatic musicians is the third position first and the fifth position. Okay. By the third position, I mean that when you come to your third finger, which is the ring finger, with which you play Ma or Sa, you have to play it on your index finger. So you see my index finger has come where my ring finger would have been. My index finger has come. And this is pretty common. I'm guessing a lot of you guys play this. How you can follow this up is with this. So for Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, I use the four fingers, from the index finger to the middle finger to the ring finger to the little finger. And for the Pa, so that's in the third position. This is the first step for you guys to be able to play higher up. I must confess that all these years I've just been playing my own way, how to play on top with Gamakas, etc. And I've been getting away with it. But the thing is, when you want to play plain notes, when you want to play fast, it's important to have this sort of a positional theory. It takes a little bit to sort of unlearn what you've been doing and learn this. But having said that, once you cross this small hill, you can easily start to apply your Gamakas to it and sort of do a lot of plain notes. Imagine you can be as comfortable here as you are here. So that's the aim. So the third position is a very good step to go towards being able to play high and comfortably and confidently. Check out Violin Technique Instagram page as well as my YouTube page. Violin Technique by Karthick Iyer. You should be able to find it by searching. Again, I put this video, more detailed video on the third position. Go check that out. Guys, I'm really lagging behind in my questions. Why my violin sounds a little odd when I play on the fifth position on Sa strings? Please do answer. Sriraj, I don't know what it is that makes the violin sound odd. If it's the intonation, you need to work on the intonation by playing it slowly. Play with your usual Sarli Varisai, Janta Varisai, or since you're talking about positions, if you have Western exercises, play it. It shouldn't sound odd. One thing is, as you go up and up, the strings tend to become a bit bright and screechy. It's good to play a little closer to the fingerboard. So this is called sound point, guys. I mean, this is the answer to Sriraj's question and many other things. When you're playing at the fingerboard, see the difference? So at the fingerboard, the sound is mellow, warm, volume is less. As you go towards the bridge, the sound becomes brighter and it becomes much louder. So as you go for your higher octaves, like the fifth position, so here you need to play it a bit lightly. You can't go too much towards the fingerboard because the other strings come into play, but play it as lightly as possible and keep it a bit warm. So that's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, if the oddity is because of the intonation, you need to work on it. Play it very slowly. Use a metronome. Play it very slowly at a specific tempo and slightly look to improve the metronome week after week. I always recommend, please use a metronome. Please use a tanpura. The tanpura is always telling us whether we are in Shruti or not. The metronome is a very, very objective way for us to understand what tempo we are playing in. It's an objective way of measurement, because if you're playing in 90 today, you want to improve, go to 92 tomorrow and go to 94. And again, when you're playing the first speed, second speed, third speed and fourth speed onwards, it's very important to keep within that speed and keep to tempo. You know, we might, if you're struggling, we might naturally and very humanly reduce the tempo. So we don't want to have all that. So we want that mechanical tempo to keep going, and we'll keep following with that. Cantini or Yamaha? I would go for Yamaha any day, Yadav Krish. A lot of people like the Cantini, so maybe, I don't know, people like me saying that, but I used to have a Yamaha. I really liked it, but then I've moved ever since to my Tulsi. I did not like the tone of the Cantini. Maybe once you plug it to the MIDI, it helps. But I was in Raleigh at the electric violin shop, and I was trying out the Cantini. I wanted to buy it, but I just did not like the tone. And I already played a Yamaha. I don't know if anyone's been following me from years ago. I have a blue Yamaha violin which I don't use anymore, but that stayed with me for years together. How to pick a good electric violin? Check the tone out first. Okay, so I'll tell you one thing. You need to go to the store, play it. Preferably, if you're into sound cards and if you have your own setup, take your setup and listen to it on the headphone. It's very important. Okay. The problem with electric violin is if you have it all in one shop, then the good thing is you go there, try 3-4 violins, you know what the difference is. Always look at what you want. Do you want an acoustic sounding electric violin? So this is my Tulsi, which sounds more acoustic. Of course, it's not the acoustic violin, but if you compare this to a Yamaha or if you compare this to a Cantini, this sounds like way more acoustic. I like it for that reason. On the other hand, you have the synthetic sounding Yamaha or Cantini or the NS violins. If that's your sound, where the sound is nice and thick and fat, well, that's up to you. So listen to a few options online. Maybe that's better because you have your speakers or you have your headphones. Just compare which violin works. On the lower end, I am seeing a few violins for 15,000 and all that. One of my students was asking me about it. I need to go play them and check them out and compare them with my violin and just see how it works out so that I can have specific recommendations for beginners. But otherwise, if you want to go for a higher price violin, there are plenty of YouTube videos that will show you comparisons. See what sound fits you the best and pick that out. That's as basic as it goes. 5-string, 4-string, you have a lot of options. Kiran Ganti wants me to play on the acoustic violin. Okay, a lot of people ask me this. I have my acoustic violin right here, so I'm happy to play. Are there any requests? Okay. I don't see anything here, so I'm just gonna play something. Okay, Sriram asked for Bro Barama. Barama, Vellai Pukal for extra sheet. Someone asked for Chinnanjiri Kiliye, Vicky Vishwa. Every song has Namo Sharafi, every song has glissando when it comes to Carnatic, so you'd have already heard a few glissandos. Chinnanjiri Kiliye and then Kanmani, and then I'll go back to questions. I've done like a Kapi Raga mashup. You can see it on my IGTV. I did a Carnatic mashup with Jagado Dharana, Ennatavam Saidane, Kore Andrimillai, and I did another mashup with lot of film songs, basically, from Kadal Rojave to a lot of songs, En Mail Virinde and all that. So check it out. Kanmani. Okay, so again, let me just talk a bit about my course. I see a question on Gamakas by Western violin students. I'm starting my third crash course on from August 10th onwards. I'm having a very good time with these crash courses. I have about 60 students whom I've taught to with the first two crash courses. We had students from India, from the US, from UK, a few countries in the Europe, Australia, Singapore. So all over we've had people. It's been a tough time for my team and my wife who's helping me scheduling with respect to all the time zones, but we've been able to make it work. We have one class in the morning, one class in the evening, IST, and somehow it works for people from America, Australia, as well as the Europe. So I was telling you about chord technique where I'm dealing purely with bowing and left hand. I have about 7 electives. One of those electives is Gamakas, where I'm both teaching to Carnatic students who already know Gamakas and how to improve that further. We talk about a lot of combination Gamakas on like more advanced, getting into Gamaka theory. I also have a few Western classical students who have started learning Gamakas. So I talk to them about what the basic slide is, what the 2-finger, 3-finger, 4-finger slide is. So for both beginners of Carnatic as well as Western classical students, how you start with the Gamakas, what we discussed. I have a film elective where I talk about how to make the film songs sound very neutral and lose the Carnatic touch where not needed and add it where you can add like your Sangati. I have the vibrato elective where I talk about how to play an effective vibrato. My next elective, vibrato elective, is tomorrow morning. So that's happening. I also have a violin processing, electric violin processing and a home studio elective where I talk about how to process the electric violin, how to use the basic software, etc. Then there is a fast bowing and fingering where how to play fast is one of the questions that someone had asked. I deal purely with that. Then what else? I have the Kalpana Swaram elective, which is a very, very nice elective. How to play Kalpana Swaram with like a storyline sort of an attitude is one of the electives. So I have a few electives. I'm planning to come with a lot more. This is all part of the crash course. The participants can choose how many other electives they want to, and I bunch people based on their level of experience, and that's how the course works. Let me get to some questions. Right, Jirvani Manoharan. Elementary question, somehow in my new violin, when I bow touches both strings, how do I avoid it? This is a very good question. So we have different levels when it comes to bowing. So let's say we hold the bow here in the middle. You have different levels. Okay, let me show it to you in the Western style. It's more obvious, but it exists for the Indian one as well. Okay, so you have this, where at different levels, so we can identify for a 4-string violin, we can identify 7 levels. That is the G string, the 4th string, and the G as well as the D, the 3rd and the 4th. Playing this both together, 3rd string, 3rd and 2nd together, 2nd and 1st together, and the 1st. Now why we introduce the 3rd, 4th, the 2 strings together is, you can play 1 string even by moving it a little bit, you're still playing the 1st string, but if for you to play 2 strings together, you need to be very precise. So it's very important for you to practice open strings preferably have your web camera right here or your mirror right here. Have your violin with violin sort of parallel to your web camera so that you can check your bowing out and play all the four as open strings, down bow, up bow. So give a lot of importance to the double string as well, because the precision needed to play the double string is very important. If you can get the double string throughout the down bow as well as the up bow, that really helps for you to sort of have a better control. Apart from that, it's basically just keeping your bow parallel. You want to have the bow parallel, you don't want it like this, you don't want it like this, and then have the level sorted so that your arm takes your bow in one direction. Okay, so this is one of the first important things to playing, avoiding how it touches both strings. Just open string practicing helps. How to play raga with glissando. So let me talk a bit about gamakas. I'll go back to the electric violin. So at the basic, gamakas is the slide. Okay, so you have the basic level you have a 2-finger slide, a 3-finger slide, a 4-finger slide. So let's just look at a 2-finger slide. What happens when we are playing, like, say, I'm going to address this to the Western classical students. When you have on your D string, you have your E and your F, okay? So you have a sort of a slide that takes you from the E to the F and the F to E. So an upward slide and a downward slide. So what you're basically doing is you're dropping the finger down and picking it up, okay, as slowly as possible. So you're starting from 0 pressure to 100% pressure. So you sort of go from so what's important is you want to maintain a continuous line of the pitch. You don't want any steps, okay? This is the core of any slide, any gamaka, any glissando that you'll play, okay, is this smoothness. So the more slowly you play, the more control you have. If you want to take this forward, let's go from E to F sharp, which will involve literally a slide. So you have so what I'm doing is I'm sliding my index finger. So I'm sliding my index finger from E to F. And the same thing that we did is I'm dropping my middle finger down. Okay, so first step, identify what your source note, target note is. E, F sharp, okay, done. What's your source finger, your target finger? It's the index finger for the E, F sharp is the middle finger. So now have a plain note playing. Now move. Now use the slide so that you're moving from Re to Ga and Ga to Re, or E to F sharp and F sharp to E. So you have the basic transition that we looked at. Then when you put two finger slides together, you have. So I'm moving from my index to my middle and my middle to my ring finger. So this, at the very basic level, is what you need as a Western classical musician or even a jazz musician to start with playing gamakas. So once you have this, then you have it across positions as well. It's all the same technique. It's either a 2-finger slide, 3-finger slide, 4-finger slide. You're just moving it more. Okay. After this, you start to get into a more complex gamaka, like. So that's just a combination of 4 or 5 slides coming together. So let's work on the slide first, and then look at how the gamaka in itself comes together. I deal with this in the gamaka elective as well. So I'm getting my first violin. I would say go for the acoustic violin. If it's your first violin, definitely go for your acoustic violin, please. Hi Singer Prabha, hi Abhijit. When did you start playing Cine songs? I started playing Cine songs when I was in college. Up till college, I was like a very staunch traditional Carnatic musician. I said to everyone in my college, I won't play film songs because it's wrong and all that. But then I changed. I started to play more fusion music and got into films. When I realized I wanted to take it as a profession, I wanted to go get into film recordings, and I wanted to diversify myself. I wanted to play different types of styles as well. So around about college is when I started playing film songs. Yes. For concerts, which tuning do you use? Basic Carnatic, Shilpa. I use basic Carnatic. I use either C sharp, one and a half shruti, or D, 2 shruti. I prefer that. How to tone violin in Western? I don't understand the question. Do you mean tune violin in Western? It's the EADG tuning. If you have a chromatic tuner or a clip-on tuner, you can get a phone app as well. EADG is the tuning. I've already answered Besu's question about gamakas by Western student. Okay, Ajmal asks, how about listening techniques? How to understand notes by listening, tuning by listening? Okay, so I have a very interesting take on this because I feel like let's start very, very simple. If you want to write notes, a lot of people ask me, I want to play a song, but I don't know the notes for it, right? At the very basic level, start by going for your nursery rhymes. Go for your Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, London Bridge is Falling Down, Happy Birthday to You. You know these songs like very, very well. Okay. Now write down the swaras for it, right? Either swaras, or if you're a Western musician, you want to write your other notes, you could try them out as well. Have your violin with you. Pluck the violin. So try out the notes. Sa sa pa pa da da pa. And it's true that these nursery rhymes are the simplest songs that you'll find. So start with something like super simple. If you make a mistake, so if you do something wrong, you're immediately going to know what's wrong. So this is the best way to start, and then go up the age in terms of the kids' music as you have the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year old. Because I'm listening to the kind of music that my son listens to, his nursery rhymes and all that. So I understand it gets a bit more complicated as they grow old. But what I'm trying to say is start very super simple and do a lot of songs. After doing 10 songs, you're going to understand. Okay. First, identify what the sa is. Okay. If you have a song that's playing, you can have your tanpura on your phone. First, identify where the sa is. Okay. So it'll almost always come and land in the sa or land in the pa. Happy birthday to you. Da, 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 da. See, it lands in sa. Mama ga sa di sa. It lands in sa. So, figure out what the sa is. Then take your violin, tune your shruti to that, or use an app to change it so that it's to your shruti of your violin. You have many apps like Music Speed Changer where you can change the shruti of a piece. So if your violin is in 2, you can bring that to 2. And then start to pluck the notes, check the notes, write it down, then play it back, and you can understand where you are, what's wrong, and make corrections as necessary. This is, I would say, it's a trial and error method, but this is the best way for you to understand. The second part of his question, Ajmal's, is always have a tanpura or a string pad drone playing, because when you're playing your exercises, your left hand chord technique exercises, you want to make sure that your intonation is right. So you need to understand that by listening to the tanpura and making sure you are in tune. Another way to tune is by looking at the other strings. So play the sa along with the sa string here. So when it goes out of tune, you know the difference. It starts to get unpleasant. Okay, so that's a good way to tune. You could do that with the ga and the pa. So when it goes out of tune, you hear it becoming unpleasant, dissonant. When it's in tune, it sounds more pleasant. So that's a good way for you to understand whether a note that you're playing just then and there is in tune by trying out the other string. And then you also have your tanpura, so there's always a constant feedback going on. Very, very important, tune your violin strings before you start playing, because that's most important. If your tuning is in different places every day, you're going to be practicing the wrong thing every day. Any key notes or points you learn playing the violin? A lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of interest. To practice efficiently, okay, that's if you were to ask me a bit more specific question, I would say give a lot of importance to the bowing. That's very important, because people tend to, especially Carnatic musicians, we tend to not think about the bowing too much. We think more about Gamakas, the ragas, which is fair enough, but look a lot in terms of the bowing, because the bowing is the vocal cord. Okay, like the singer, he needs to have a strong voice. Only then, whatever he sings, he or she sings, and whatever different techniques that they do, the voice is most important. So the bow that creates the tone on the string is sort of the soul of the violin. That's what the French school calls it. So that needs to be smooth, that needs to be strong, that needs to be confident. Pay a lot of attention to the bowing. An important tip on practicing I would like to share to Chandana is, when you're trying to work something out, you play until you get it right. And then once you got it right, you stop. That's what everyone does. I've also been doing that for the longest time. But then we have muscle memory in our fingers that are purely repetitive. There's no brain here. Okay, the brain tells us whether we are playing it right. Okay, we feel happy. We're playing it wrong. Okay, we want to try it again. That the brain keeps doing that. But these fingers have a muscle memory which is purely by repetition. So what you want to do is, when you've gotten it right, you want to play it many more times right than you have taken to play it wrongly. So if you played it wrong 9 times and right one time, still your fingers sort of remember only the 9 times, because it's all repetitive, it's procedural memory. So once you get it right, play it 10 more times. That's when it sets in your fingers what is right, and the next time you want to play it, it's going to become, you're going to play the right thing more easily. So practice what is right more than practicing what is wrong. So very important to keep that in mind. Okay, someone's requesting Kalyanathenilla. Yeah, it's been a long time since I played this song. Let me try a few lines. Okay, guys, I'll answer a few more questions. If you're interested in the crash course, you can go to the link on the bio. Click there. You find all the details. It's bit.ly, bit.ly/VTWKI03. That's Violin Technique with Karthick Iyer, VTWKI03. You can go there, check all the details, pick whatever electives you want, and you'll have a registration form as well, where I'll ask you a lot of questions about yourself, including a audio recording of what you play. A lot of frequently asked questions. Is it for beginners? Yes, it is. It's not for absolute beginners. If you haven't started playing a violin at all, then I have a separate course starting in the ending of August, just to see how to hold the violin, how to hold the bow. But even if you've started playing a basic scale on, if you can play Sarigama Padanisa, Sanidapa Magarisa, or if you can play a basic Western scale, major or minor scale, you're in. The course works for you. I have people from different beginners, intermediates, advanced, so I group them according to their level. It's for people from different time zones. If you're from the US, if you're from the UK, if you're from Australia, we figure out a way to slot everyone in at hopefully a sane timing. You can choose as many electives as you want, and if you have any questions, you can write to me at karthikiyer.music@gmail.com, or you could just DM me on Instagram and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Okay, the course starts on the 10th of August onwards. I have only 24 seconds remaining, so I'm afraid I have to go away. I'll see you all very soon in another Insta Live. Okay, thank you all for being here. Thank you for all your questions. Guys, join the Violin_technique on Instagram. I might not have answered some of your questions. I didn't have the time, but ask your questions there and I'll make sure I answer all your questions. Thank you all very much. Take care.